Broken homes can be caused by addiction, death, poverty, violence, marital problems, poor family relationships, and many other factors. Man, there is something wrong here, and I didn't truly know how to pinpoint it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Living Generationally podcast, and I am your host, Brianna Lari, and I am so excited and overjoyed to be here. And this podcast exists to challenge and equip you to live a life of legacy that leads to the future, breaking away from generational cycles of brokenness and dysfunction, and equipping you to step into a life that considers how your actions and decision making impacts both the current generation and the next generation. And it truly is a blessing to be here, and I praise the Lord for it. Um, I hope you all are well. And if you have been joining me for this season, I think I'm officially titling this season Breaking Generational Cycles or Breaking the Cycle. And this season is just diving deep into those patterns within our families and marriages that we have seen and witnessed that are not leading to the fruit that we want in our families and marriages, into that generational legacy that we want to not only just begin but to continue on far beyond our lives and in our communities as well too. So yes, I'm excited to officially just be able to have a focus of what I want this season to be. And there's a lot in store for this season, and I'm very excited about just the different topics that the Lord has placed in my heart, and just the opportunity to dive deeper and to go into the the deep places, so to speak, for lack of a better word, go to those deep areas of our lives where we feel so much brokenness, and I've witnessed so much brokenness and dysfunction, and we're trying to navigate how to break free and how to begin that journey of healing so we can live a life of legacy that leads to the future. And that is the goal of living generationally, to challenge and equip you to live a life of legacy that leads to the future. But how can we do that if we're still living within the baggage of generational cycles of brokenness and dysfunction? And we're continuing that on to our families and their families. And that is not something that I desire in my own family. And I sure know that that is not something that you desire in your own family. Um, yeah. And in today's episode, I think I'm going to title it Rewriting the Story of Broken Homes, or Rewriting the Story in Broken Homes, and kind of what I am learning, but also just a deeper dive into broken homes and what is a broken home, and addressing the root causes of a broken home, exploring the impact of broken homes on generational patterns and how to heal from trauma, but also building a foundation of trust. Like, how do we not only just understand what a broken home is and what we come from and the power that it may have hold and the struggles that we may face within the reality of being raised in a broken home and recognizing those issues, but also how do we go from there? How do we rewrite the story? Are we just going to just live into the mess and just allow it to overwhelm us? Are we going to allow the Lord to rewrite a story through our own lives and healing us and breaking us and rebuilding us and growing us? So that is another point I want to navigate, is how do we create a new narrative, truly empowering you to take a hold of your own story, your own family story, and allow the Lord to transform it for the good and for the better. And with further ado, let's get into today's episode. So, I think oftentimes when we hear of a broken home, many of us have experienced the reality of a broken home, but what does it mean to be um, raised in a broken home or to be a part of a broken family? What does that look like? And I know there's so many different perspectives ranging across the board of people who are raised in broken homes and their experiences. And I think it's important to explore that so we can understand better what we're up against and the past and what we've come from and what the Lord is wanting to do in our own stories. And I decided to look up the Oxford diction. I decided to look up the Oxford dictionary definition of what is a broken home, and this is what I found. It says a broken home is a family in which the parents are divorced or separated. And I was like, huh, like, I think that is a definition of a broken home, and many people are a result of a family where their parents were either neither ever married, separated, or where they got eventually got a divorce because maybe a particular situation. But I wanted to get underneath the surface of truly wanting to learn more about what is a broken home. And because we know that there are people who even have both of their parents in a home, and yet still that there's a lot of brokenness and dysfunction within their family home. So, another definition or a deeper definition of a broken home, it refers to a family or situation where the parents are divorced or separated, leading to a household that is no longer functioning as a cohesive family unit. And I want to keep that in mind, cohesive family unit. Broken homes can be caused by addiction, death, poverty, violence, marital problems, poor family relationships, and many other factors. And something else to point out, like I mentioned before, families don't need to be separated to be in a broken home. As I mentioned before, the description of a family that is broken is dysfunction and many characteristics that lie under the 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 topic of dysfunction or the area of dysfunction. And I think that's important to begin there because we need to first define what we are trying to address before actually addressing the underlying issues. And um, I know, like, from my own personal story, like, a broken home from my perspective is not having my dad in the home. If you listen to the previous episodes, I briefly shared that, like, my dad was not in the home. He was in jail, and that impacted my siblings and I's childhood a lot. And that led for me, like, not having him in a home, like maybe like from my own memory, I can really seeing it affected me a lot as I reached adolescence. And my dad was in jail from the time I was born to around when I was 8 or 9 years old. And then he came out, and then there are other situations that kind of led him back into that place. And I also want to mention, I put this disclaimer in other videos as well too, because I think it's important, at least for me, and just my heart posture and what the Lord is leading me to do and the purpose of this podcast. Um, as you like, yes, there are dysfunctions and brokenness within each and every home, and every situation is different. And I want to have compassion and humility for that, and to not to hastily just speak words. But I also just want to speak from my experience as well too. I love my dad, and we do have a good relationship, and I love my mom, and I do have a good relationship with my mom. But as by the grace of the Lord and him working not him working in my own heart and just showing me and revealing to me his goodness even in the midst of the dysfunction and the brokenness of my family. And I go through these things to truly want to find freedom so I don't carry on these things to my children. But I don't, the purpose isn't to create a podcast where I'm pointing the blame at my parents, but to truly to understand, because they came for their own homes of their parents raising them, my grandma, my grandpa raising them. So, or my dad's dad was not in his life, so that he had that absence of a father as well too. So there's always another story to be told within the story of someone else experiencing within their childhood. So I just wanted to point that out. But yeah, but my own story, like, I my dad wasn't there, and it led to a lot of doubt within my own heart of my own worth and value. Like, who am I? um and asking these questions, like, a little girl wants the validation of her father. And I think not having that consistently in my life truly led me to seeking attention from men and just truly craving validation. And that kind of led to me making decisions, which I own the decisions because I at the end of the day made them. But the brokenness and dysfunction that I experienced with fatherlessness led to a deep identity disruption and wanting to seek that elsewhere. And also within my own, like my family, like on both my dad and my mom's side, there's brokenness and dysfunction within that as well too. We have family members um who struggle with different things, and there's addiction, there's fatherlessness, there's marital problems, there's different like poor family relationships as well too. And even with my mom, like the Lord knows I love my mama, and he has grown me in so much wisdom and humility from my mom, and just what she had to endure, and just how she just tried to do the best with what she had. But even my relationship with my mom, like there was a time where like in my heart was so hardened because I struggled with some of the decisions that she made in regarding to relationships and just other things as well too, that I just truly wrestled in my heart with my mom. And praise the Lord for the sacrifice of her like providing for us, but also like like, and they were my mom tried her best, like she made sure that she spent time with us, but not having her in the home consistently, that also causes a lot of issues as well too, which I'm sure that if you've experienced that, you know that as well. And I would say even the marriages I was around, they were broken. They were so broken, and just conflict, screaming, yelling, aggression, fighting, arguing, and then even left fear within my own heart, and confusion and worry and doubts and instability within my own self. And even circumstances, there's been seasons in my life where there's been deep struggle. um and my mama, like she like I said, she's worked so hard, but there's been times where um things have been really hard, and my mom, she tried her best to make sure that um we that wasn't like she tried to protect us as well from that as well too, because I do think there's an appropriate amount that kids should be aware of, and I do believe that my mom tried her best to make sure that we didn't see. But you can sense things as a child, even if you don't fully understand something, so you begin to wonder and question. And um yeah, and I think the turmoil within my family and just family relationships, it kind of, as I got older, led to instability and led to just questioning and just feeling the overwhelm of just the sense of like, man, there is something wrong here, and I didn't truly know how to pinpoint it. And I feel like it's not until you get older, maybe just in my own experience, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but as I got older, that's when I truly felt the weight of the brokenness of my family, and that's when it began to crush me, and that's when it became really hard to navigate and work through, and it became emotional. And I even found times where there was this moments where days got so dark that I questioned my own existence. Like, why am I here? What is the point of living? Everything around me is just broken. Why? Just these questions of why. And um I just want to just share with you and tell you that there is hope in the Lord. And even in the midst of those darkest days, like even those days when and I didn't know the Lord, the I feel like the Lord still had us as a family even within the brokenness. It's which is just interesting to navigate through and to think about. But I think just coming to know the Lord and just his redemptive power and redeeming my story. And I truly believe he's still doing that, redeeming my story. Um yeah, but I just want to encourage you in that the Lord is faithful, and he sees your pain, and he sees your brokenness. He sees the tears that you cry when no one else is watching. He feels and sees the pain that you are quenching within your soul. He sees it so clearly, and know that you're not alone and that he is for you. But um yeah, and as we answer that question of what is a broken home, and as I share my own experience, I think it's also important that we explore the root causes of what has caused brokenness within the home and the family, and why do we see such a tragedy when many people are being raised in broken homes, and then themselves are broken individuals. Like, we're all broken and we're all fallen from the grace of God, and we're all in need of his redemptive power and the newness of life that is found in him. But there is a big tragedy for those who have been raised in brokenness and dysfunction and don't know anything else besides that, and is trying to navigate those waters and how to move forward, but being held by that the power of the cycle and not knowing how to overcome that. And I think a lot of the brokenness that we see within homes and families truly comes from the shift within our culture, and there are many underlying issues of what causes a broken home, like I listed, like addiction, death, poverty, violence, marital problems, poor family relationships, and other factors that I'm sure that you can list yourself, that you know off the top of your head, and that you know that you've been impacted by um so intimately, if I can put it like that, for the back lack of better words. um but I truly believe that the brokenness within our family comes from many societal shifts of the way we view family and marriage. And many of you know the often stated um divorce rate, that there seems to be a range between 42 to 45% of first marriages that end in divorce. Like, the divorce rates um are just crazy, both in the church and outside the church as well too. And then people get married again, and then the divorce rates for second and third marriages are even higher, with second marriages resulting in a 60% likely to divorce, and then a 73% likely to divorce. And it's just crazy, and it's overwhelming to just see the reality of this shift towards seeing marriage not in the way that the Lord sees marriage. And when I was even doing some of the research of, like, why, because I know there are different um problems and situations that result that people get a divorce, and there are plausible um and biblical accepted reasons for someone to get divorced, such as adultery. Adultery, am I saying that right? Yes. But when I did the research, it was so heartbreaking, because many people are not that's not the top reason people are getting divorced. It's because they no longer feel committed to the relationship that they once committed to in the beginning, and they just don't want to work at it. It's just not um they've changed, or they no longer like the person that they're with. And I don't think these are valid reasons, biblical reasons, to get a divorce. As we know, if you're a believer or follower of Christ, and if you're not, you're gonna wrestle and argue with my standpoint, but I stand firm because I'm a follower of Christ, and that is what God's word leads me and guides me in. And like I said, this is not in the cases of like, there are cases where divorce is plausible in a sense of abuse and adultery. And I um I think the more scriptural one is adultery. And I think I've heard perspectives of like separation in the case of abuse, and I'm the yeah, so I think there's different perspectives on that, but that is just what we see in scripture. The clear one is adultery. um yeah, and this shift in society and culture, the value of marriage and family is declining. We are seeing many people no longer want to get married, because they're like, why would I get married to this person? I'm already getting to do everything that a married person gets to do. Like, you're getting to have sex with that person before marriage, you're getting to live with them, you're getting to do life with them, and that people are just seeing marriage as a contract, that they just like, why would I do that? Why would I do that when I've seen it not go right within the marriages around them? But also, I would say that there seems to be a Western view where we're starting to devalue motherhood and fatherhood and children. Think of the rates of abortion and how high like the abortion rates are, and how many innocent lives are being taken. And it's just we are devaluing the importance of children that the Lord has given children to be. But also motherhood and fatherhood aren't as valued as is supposed to be biblically. In this multi-generational family, it's been very much distorted. We live in a culture where we see family as a launching pad for our own individual successes, rather doing what is better for the betterment of the family. And that isn't to say that each family member doesn't have their own gifts and talents. Like, praise the Lord, like the Lord has given us different gifts and talents, but we have pursued those different things at the detriment of family, and that is causing a lot of brokenness and dysfunction within the home. And even biblically, we see Abraham truly desire this idea of wanting to build a multi-generational family. And there's a brother in the Lord, I forgot, oh, Jeremy Pryor, and he talks a lot about like family teams and multi-generational family. And I just have been so encouraged by that dear brother in the Lord, and just what he has shared in the ministry that him and his wife and his family are doing. It's so beautiful. But he brings up many good points that we devalue. Like, our culture does not truly value fatherhood the way, or that biblically was valued, that Abraham valued, like the patriarch and the matriarch, which is motherhood, and this generational legacy of building a family and this multi-generational vision. It has been lost within our culture. And I truly believe like that comes from the shift, um, from an like agrarian culture to the industrial revolution. And I know we hear this within culture a lot, the comparison between the agrarian culture and society compared to the industrial revolution. And but I truly like there are good things per se that came from the industrial revolution that can be argued and are valid points. But I think, one, we would be mistaken to not acknowledge the detriment that it has also caused within the family. The shift in from a agrarian, that word I'm struggling, agrarian, I'm saying agrarian, I think that's how you say it. The shift in the culture of agrarian versus industrial revolution impacts the home and the family. We've gone to a multi-generational interconnected family where we see each person has a role within the family that is important for the family to function well. Now we shift to the industrial revolution, which actually was where the idea of the nuclear family was born, where a two-parent household with the mom and the father and their kids. And that is where the nuclear family was born out of, was the industrial revolution. And just some of the effects and impacts of the industrial revolution is, like I mentioned, the emergence of the nuclear family, due two parents and their children, due to urbanization and migration to industrial centers. And then a transformation in the role of children within the family. Like, back then in the agrarian culture and society, children were so important, to like the home and their work that they did, but also they were so valued. Like, children were so valued as an important part and role of the family. And now we live in a culture where we dismiss children, where we say this is a kid's work and this is where the adults work. And we have taken the kids out of the beauty of what it means to work together as a family. And kids are now being distracted with screens and different things, and their role in the family isn't actually fulfilled as it should be biblically, because we have the shift in culture and a change in culture. You may think, so Brianna, are you suggesting that we should just go back to agrarian lifestyle? And I say in part, yes, because I think it's just a better way to live. Me personally, I know there's going to be some pushback on that, But I think also it's just to recognize that there are principles and values that have changed over time because of the shift in culture. And we also see that the family went from a unit of production to a unit of consumption. When it was in an agrarian culture, like the farmer, it was farming and growing your own food, and family being the breeding ground for producing food, and not where we're just being consumers. And that changed the family culture as well too, because we go to this family that's knit together and is working with one another and is relying on each other um to it creates so much responsibility and accountability to live within a family culture where you're relying on each other than when you're living in a consumer based culture where you're relying on everyone else to make sure that you get your food and different things that you need. Because if something were to go wrong with that system, like, now you and your family have to figure things out, and that becomes a bit hard and challenging to work through. But it create like I mentioned before, it creates a sense of accountability and responsibility when you're relying on each other for food and to make the home life work together. Um it, it creates that knitted family that's together. um there was also an increased individualization as well too within families. Fathers went off to the work field, and it was like the separation from fathers and the work, where it became much about climbing the career ladder as it went on into later years. And it became solely centered on yourself succeeding rather than the family unit itself succeeding. And I'm not saying fathers going away at work is a bad thing. Like, praise the Lord that we have opportunities to work and provide for families, and that fathers and mothers, depending on the context, can do that. But I do believe that we have to address the that this can create an individualism where you're pursuing your own career efforts at the expense of your own family, and it causes dysfunction and brokenness within the home as well too. Um, there was also changes in spousal and parent and child relationships. When you have this big, drastic cultural shift, there's a change where, as husband and wife, were once working together, now you're not working with one another. You're off in your own individual careers, pursuing different goals. And I heard that division, like division is division, two separate goals, two separate visions going in separate directions, and that creates division. And also the parent child relationship was suffered as well too. You don't have the father, you don't have the mother in the home. And even if the mother was home and the father was home, sometimes that father, that those relationships still can be strained because it can be a focus on career only and not the family itself. And I think it's important to point that out as we talk about broken homes in the foundation, because I think oftentimes we can address the symptoms of broken homes, but not address the root cause of what causes broken homes. And I truly believe that the shift in our culture and worldview truly is some of the root causes of what is causing broken homes and them skyrocketing over the years. Um, and seeing that the shift truly has impacted families and created um, an incohesive family unit where no one knows their role and what they're supposed to be doing anymore, and they're trying to do it in their own strength and their own wisdom, and it's not working. Or even there are people who come from backgrounds where it's this generational cycle of brokenness, and they don't know how to break through it, and they just continue on these cycles because they're so familiar with comfortability and dysfunction. They're so familiar with the comfortability and dysfunction of brokenness because that's all they ever knew. Um, yeah, and I think it's important to address those issues, because it's like, if we don't understand the root causes of what's causing these broken homes? How can we rewrite the stories? How can we rewrite the stories? And how can we understand what we are actually up against? And I just wanted to address those issues, and also exploring the impact of broken homes. Sorry, my phone went on a pause, but um, yeah, exploring the impact of broken homes on generationally, and the patterns, and also the effect that it has on children. It is stated that statistically, children who come from broken homes/families are much more likely to commit crimes, have mental health issues, trust issues, low self-esteem, emotional instability, aggressive behavior, and attachment issues. And excuse me, and this is really sad and heartbreaking to see the reality and an impact that broken homes have on children, and how they have the potential that there is a there is a potential for these cycles to continue on, when there's been abuse or different things such as that. And I just want to say that there is hope, and that the Lord is faithful. um, Breaking generational cycles isn't just about healing yourself, it's about rewriting the narrative for future generations, and that the Lord, He wants to be in that journey with you and in that process with you. And I want to encourage you to seek help, and to find community and people that can come alongside you to help you address some of the effects that being raised in a broken home has on you. I know for me personally, just being able to have community and be able to talk to those around me has truly impacted me and has aided in this process of healing. But also having conversations with my mom and my dad. I'm like, Lord, I get to have conversations about this, and to talk with them, and to um, address these things, and the desire to not continue these things anymore. Um, yeah, and I want to encourage you that there is another way, and that there is hope, and that the Lord takes what is beautiful, takes what is broken, and He can make it into something beautiful. And I want to encourage you to be empowered to take control of your own story while walking and surrender with the Lord, to see how the Lord can use your own story of brokenness to redeem it and do something altogether beautiful, and to create strong families, and to be intentional in how you raise your children, and be intentional in the marriage, in your marriage, and even in the partner or that you choose. um yeah, and I think, just to share, like, I also want to, I was reading this article and it really stuck out to me, and it kind of talked about just some habits and some struggles that some people who are raised in broken homes within their own stories just faced, and find a struggle in overcoming. And I'm sure that you may be able to relate to this if your story may be similar. Um, some people said that their ability to mediate um, was it was hard. Like, the ability to mediate was hard, because they always got in between their parents, who refused to speak to each other. um and the person says, "Now I am an attorney," which is interesting. And it says, someone else said, their mind learned how to dissociate from their body when they were really young, and now they have no control over it. And it can happen from anything from a really loud noise to someone just touching them on the shoulder. Someone else mentioned that they apologize constantly, even for things that are not their fault, because they're always scared that people are mad at them Um, and they feel ashamed to cry in front of people, and they only cry alone because when they were younger, their mom used to send them away to the room, and she didn't care to see them cry or to be of an emotional support to her children. And someone else said that they just got used to blocking out the world around them because they grew up in a home where their mom and stepdad just kept fighting every night. They would yell and yell over silly stuff, and it didn't help either that they were both drunk. And every night they would come home and it would just be arguing, and this person would have to separate themselves and go in their room, and that kind of led to isolation. And there's someone else that mentioned just the fear of intimacy and abandonment issues, and not just intimacy in the sense of physically, but just relationally as well too, and emotionally. And there's so many more stories of people who explain the hurt and pain that they felt from being raised in a home that was filled with dysfunction and brokenness, and how that impacted them. And I share these things to know that you're not alone. That I think sometimes a lie that we can replay in our mind and hearts is that we're alone, that no one else has experienced what we've experienced, and no one else will understand. And to know that someone understands, maybe not specifically what you've went through, but they understand what it feels like to be raised in a home with dysfunction and brokenness, fatherlessness, or addiction, or separation, or family strain relationships. And yeah, the Lord is faithful and He is good. And I encourage you to seek help, admit that you have a struggle or problem so that you can get the help. Because how can you get the help if you don't first acknowledge what you're struggling with? Invite others into that process, and be committed to the process of breaking the cycle and not compromising. Because we as you lived in a habit of something, it becomes harder to break because you're so used and familiar with those patterns. And yeah, and I just pray that we can continue these conversations, and that this can be a community where we can grow and learn to break the cycle of dysfunction and brokenness, and say goodbye to it. See you later. We don't, not even see you later. We don't want to see you later. We're going to say goodbye for good and walk in the freedom that Christ has bought for us. And yeah, I want to encourage you that if you missed the other episodes, to go back and listen to those episodes. I truly hope that they're a blessing to you, and that we get to continue this journey together more as we dive deep into breaking the cycle and understanding what are we breaking free from, and how has it affected us, and how can we rebuild. So that is the heart behind this season. And with that, that is the end of today's episode. I truly hope that you are blessed by that. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And you can watch on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hello, you can see me in video. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I would truly appreciate it if you leave a like, comment, or a rating. Is it? No, this is you. Like, comment, rating. You know the different platforms. Subscribe to see more of this content. I want to encourage you to live a life with legacy leading to the future. Goodbye, friends.